che saprota Andrioveni, chiaro chiare lefteriar, che saprota Andrioveni, chiaro chiare lefteriar, che saprota Andrioveni, chiaro chiare lefteriar. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please, everyone come in, please be seated. Welcome, everyone. Your Eminence, Archbishop Philippolis, Your Grace, Reverend Fathers, honored guests, good morning. My name is George Cantonis. I'm the president of Helena College Holy Cross. It's my pleasure to welcome you today to celebrate, enjoy, and learn. Importantly, to learn from the Greek Revolution through American Eyes, a joint presentation developed by Hellenic College Holy Cross and Stockton University. I'm filling in as MC today for Drake Baracus, chair of the Hellenic College Holy Cross Meliodas Cultural Center Advisory Committee. Unfortunately, Drake has come down with a bit of the COVID. He's doing well, but unable to join us today. We were blessed to have the 200th anniversary of the Greek Revolution fall during a period of time where it so easily could evolve into the major grand opening event of the use of the Meliodas Center into the by our schoolie. I'm not going to dwell on the exhibit itself. I'm going to go ahead and let our presenters elaborate on that in more detail during their presentations. Right now, however, I'd like to introduce our Archbishop, our guest of honor, His Eminence Archbishop of Illifotos. I've never had the opportunity to actually introduce the Archbishop. And I have to say that I wondered, actually struggled with how I was going to go about doing that. And what I should actually say. His energy, his vision, his perceptiveness. They've all been mentioned by others. His natural instinct to action. He is a problem solver. He is a doer. And then there is his characteristic smile when he enters a room. And all one has to do is spend a little bit of time with him to see that. All of that has been remarked upon by other people. So my remark is really just going to be personal, and it's going to be brief, because I can simply confirm that all the aforementioned characteristics are actually true. So with that, it's my honor to introduce our Archbishop and the Chairman of the Board of Hellenic College Holy Cross, His Eminence Archbishop of Illifotos. Your Eminence.
Thank you, Jordan. Let's begin with a prayer, since we're all standing. Let us pray to the Lord, Kyrie eleison. Πανάγια Δέσποτα, επί τη απελευθερώση και την παλινιενεσία του ημετέρου έθνους. Τας ευχαριστηρίους ημών ταύτας δέξε προσευχάς και επάκουσον ημών, εν πίστη δεωμένων σου εκτενώς. Τας ψυχάς των υπέρ της πίστεως και της πατρίδος ημών ευκλαιώς αγωνισαμένων και ηρωικός πεσόντων πατέρων και αδελφών ημών ανάπαυσαν. Ημάς δε πάντας, ο υπερασπιστής των σωτηρίων ημών, αξίους της ελευθερίας ανάδειξον και εν ειρήνη διαφύλαξον. Σίγαρη ο άρχον της ειρήνης και σωτήρ των ψυχών ημών, εσύ την δόξα να αναπέμπουμε, το Πατρί και το Υιό και το Αγίο Πνεύματι, νυν και αεί και εις τους αιώνας των αιώνων. Αμήν. O all Holy Master, as we celebrate the 200th anniversary of the Greek Revolution of 1821, accept our prayers of gratitude for its liberation and rebirth, and hear us as we implore you with faith. We pray for the souls of our fathers and brethren who for faith and country fought nobly and died heroically, and grant them rest. O champion of our deliverance, grant that we may be worthy of freedom and preserve us in peace. For you are the Lord of peace and the Savior of our souls, and to you we send up glory, to the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, now and ever and unto the ages of ages. Amen. Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, Mr. President, Your Grace, dear Mr. Consul General, professors, faculty, dear Chairman of the National Coordinating Committee, Mr. Logothetis, I want to congratulate and express my abiding gratitude to the Maliotis Cultural Center, our Hellenic College and Holy Cross, and the Dean C. and Zoe S. Papas Interdisciplinary Center for the Hellenic Studies of the Stockholm University for offering us this remarkable and most significant exhibition entitled The Greek Revolution Through the American Eyes, 1821 to 1829. I think that our beloved and late Professor Philip Serafin, who led this Maliotis Cultural Center, would have been utterly delighted by this patriotic celebration today. For this exhibit truly serves as the epitome of this place's purpose, a manifestation of the cultural values that we hold dear and of which the whole world has been the beneficiary. I grieve with all of you for Philip's recent loss to us, and especially with his beloved Lita, who is here with us today. Thank you, Lita, for honoring all of us today by your presence. May Philip's memory, like the immortal heroes of 1821, be eternal. Αιωνία να είναι η μνήμη του. Please allow me to make special mention as well of our president of Hellenic College and Holy Cross, Mr. George Kantonis. Mr. George Kantonis and his exceptional and indeed sacrificial leadership of our schoolie has produced results for the institution that we were only dreamed of just a few years ago. Thank you, George, for your undying and undivided devotion to this place of learning. We're all grateful to you. I also want to thank my good friend Drake Bekrakis for his kind introduction of my humble person, which was supposed to be done, and he is not here today, and we are also sorry for that, and for his service as our Master of Ceremonies, even from a distance. His family, especially his dear parents, George and Margot, have been both fundamental and instrumental to the health and well-being of the Hellenic College and Holy Cross for decades. Finally, with gratitude and utmost respect, I acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Stratos Eftimiou, Consul General of the Hellenic Republic. He is a good friend to this campus and to myself from the time you were in Ankara. The Consul General of the Hellenic Republic, by his very office, he reminds all of us of the close bonds between Greece and the United States. Indeed, the subject of this exhibit is nothing less than the movement in Greece for nationhood through American perspectives. How a young democracy, barely decades from its own revolution, looked at this ancient and revered land, struggling for its own autonomy after centuries of occupation. I know that our distinguished professors, Dr. Tom Papadimitriou of Stockton University and Dr. Nicholas Ganson, where are you? I'm sorry, with the masks, I have difficulty to recognize. Of our own Hellenic College will offer talks today that will be enlightening. But allow me just a few more moments to reflect on this historic occasion. This year of the bicentennial of the Greek Revolution is a marvelous opportunity for us not only to refresh our patriotic zeal, but also to revive in us a passion for our own history, culture, and language. The story of 1821 is one of the human aspirations for freedom and self-determination. It has the power to inspire our community for generations to come. It is a narrative that we have a solemn duty to pass on. This exhibit and its duration for the rest of the bicentennial year is a vital element in connecting the homogeneity here in the United States, in the diaspora, to the roots of the sacred vine of our traditions. To those heroes who gave their all υπέρ της πίστεως και της πατρίδος ημών, as we prayed at the beginning earlier. Understanding American points of view at that time of the Greek Revolution will undoubtedly open up new horizons of appreciation and gratitude among our own people. And so, today's opening is indeed a significant leap in the right direction for the Greek Orthodox Church here in America. Ζήτω η Ελλάδα, ζήτω το ελληνικό έθνος, ζήτω οι ήρωες του 1821. Thank you.
It is now my pleasure to introduce the Consul General of Greece in Boston, a man well known to the Greek American community throughout New England, and a model truly of what a Consul General should be and can be in the United States. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and to work with you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you in much greater detail now that we have this magnificent facility. Status of the
Σεβασμιότατε, κύριε Πρόεδρε, κυρίες και κύριοι, σήμερα δοξάζουμε μια ιστορική επέτειο, τα 200 χρόνια από την Ελληνική Επανάσταση, από την έναρξη του αγώνα που οδήγησε στην ίδρυση ενός ανεξάρτητου ελληνικού κράτους. Τιμούμε όλους τους ήρωες, τους αγωνιστές του 21, που πολέμησαν για να γίνει η Ελλάδα ανεξάρτητη, τους Έλληνες που έδωσαν μια άνεση μάχη εναντίον της Οθωμανικής Αυτοκρατορίας, μια μάχη του Νταβίδ εναντίον του Γολιάθ. Μια μάχη στρατιωτική, οικονομική, πολιτική, διπλωματική, που καταφέραμε και την κερδίσαμε χάρη και στην βοήθεια μεγάλων φιλελλήνων. Και εδώ στη Βοστόνη, στην Αθήνα της Αμερικής, έζησαν πολύ μεγάλες μορφές του αμερικανικού φιλελληνισμού, όπως ο Χάου και ο Έβερτ. Και χαιρετίζω την καταπληκτική αυτή έκθεση, συγχαρητήρια στους συντελεστές, τον κύριο Παπαδημητρίου και τον κύριο Γκάμισον, στο ανακαινισμένο Μαλλιώτιο, καλοτάξιδη η έκθεση και καλορίζεται το Μαλλιώτιο, μια έκθεση που φωτίζει την αμερικανική οπτική για τον αγώνα των Ελλήνων. Τον αγώνα των Ελλήνων τον στήριξε σύσσωμη η ελληνική κοινωνία, η διασπορά, οι έμποροι, οι αγωνιστές, ο απλός λαός και βεβαίως ο κλήρος. Δεν ξεχνάμε τον αγωνισμό του Πατριάρχη του Γρηγορίου του Πέμπτου και στον αγώνα συμμετείχαν μεγάλες μορφές της ιεροσύνης, όπως ο Κοσμάς ο Αιτωλός, που προετοίμασαν το έδαφος ιδρύοντας δεκάδες σχολεία. Συνεχίζοντας κατά κάποιο τρόπο το λαμπρό έργο του Πατριάρχη κ. Λούκαρη, ο οποίος ίδρυσε το πρώτο τυπογραφείο στην πόλη και προώθησε την εκκλησιαστική παιδεία και τα γράμματα. Η Εκκλησία μας είχε καθοριστικό ρόλο στην αφύπνιση του γένους που προετοίμασε το έδαφος για την Επανάσταση του 21. Αλλά είχε μεγάλο ρόλο και στην μεταλαμπάδευση της ελληνικής ταυτότητας μέσω της εκπαίδευσης. Είναι και αυτός, παράλληλα με τον κλιματικό και τον κοινωνικό, ο σύγχρονος ρόλος της Εκκλησίας και είναι μεγάλη τιμή να εκπροσωπώ την ελληνική πολιτεία εδώ, στη Θεολογική Σχολή του Τιμίου Σταυρού. Αυτό το πνευματικό φυτόριο της Αρχιεπισκοπής Αμερικής και του Οικουμενικού μας Πατριαρχείου, τη σχολή που με την έμπρακτη βοήθεια της ελληνικής κυβέρνησης καταφέρατε σεβασμιότατα να την αναδιοργανώσετε σε πολύ σύντομο χρονικό διάστημα και και αξίζουν πραγματικά συγχαρητήρια σε εσάς προσωπικά, αλλά και στον πρόεδρο της σχολής και σε όλο το διδακτικό προσωπικό. Η πρόσφατη χαρμόσυνη είδηση της αποκατάστασης του καθεστώτος της ακαδημαϊκής αναγνώρισης της σχολής αποδεικνύει ότι η θεολογική σχολή έχει γυρίσει πια σελίδα και χάρη στις ενέργειές σας, το σημαντικό αυτό ακαδημαϊκό ίδρυμα μπορεί απρόσκοπτα να υλοποιεί τη σημαντική αποστολή του. Your Eminence, the Greek Revolution is an opportunity to celebrate Greece's achievements, but also to reflect on the true meaning of patriotism today, and also to honor the memory of a great individual. We are here today at the renovated Maniotis Cultural Center, and also to a great patriot whom we lost recently, Philippos Serafim, a member of the Greek-American community who worked tirelessly with you to resolve successfully the long-standing legal dispute of the Maniotis Center. Philippos was a friend and a strong advocate of this cultural institution, a kind, compassionate, and tolerant person who loved his two countries, a strong supporter of arts and sciences, an individual who always promoted the dissemination of Greek language and culture, a distinguished scientist, a democratic citizen who took part in the resistance against the Greek junta. Philip was a unique individual who had a vision for this cultural institution and always strived to pass the torch of Hellenism to the next generations. Your Eminence, Mr. President, thank you for thinking of Philippos and his family and invite his widow, Miss Lesa Serafim, and his son-in-law, Ioannis, here at the Maniotis Center, where we celebrate our historic bicentennial. I think it is a great way to honor the memory of Philippos Serafim, who was a great patriot. Thank you very much.
We have all experienced a difficult 12 months due to the pandemic and its onerous consequences. During this time, the losses to our society and to our Greek American community have been grave. Amongst those losses, as has been mentioned, one felt deeply by the Greek American community has been the passing of Philip Serafim. Philip's passing cannot go without acknowledgement for his contributions to our community, to this facility, and these contributions will be his lasting legacy. Mrs. Serafim, would you please come forward? Your Eminence, would you please come forward? May his memory be eternal. And thank you for joining us. But as a beneficial, we have the messages prepared. We've received some messages in celebration of our event, and if those could be presented on the screen, I'd appreciate it.
Dear Mr. President, thank you for inviting me to participate in today's event, and I'm truly sorry that I'm not able to be with all of you in person. I remember my visit back in October and how impressed I was by the efforts to revitalize the Hellenic College Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology and the promising partnership with the Maniotis Cultural Center. As you know, Greece has been very supportive of this important work. I'm looking forward to continuing our cooperation in order to secure academic excellence for Greek Orthodox theologists, as well as to help promote the values of Hellenism and Orthodoxy in the United States. It is upon these values that the relationship between Greece and the United States is built. An historical relationship of friendship and mutual respect, forged under the wings of the Orthodox Archdiocese of America and facilitated by the dynamic Greek-American community whose energy and hard work has made it into one of the most successful and highly respected part of American society. The 200th anniversary of the Greek War of Independence provided us with a perfect opportunity to celebrate the past achievements, rediscover ourselves and what Hellenism means and overall entails, and think about the future. The opening of this exhibition marks indeed the beginning of a new cycle of life for the Maiotis Cultural Center and the Hellenic College Holy Cross, and it's only befitting that this beginning coincides with the start of a new century in our nation's life as an independent and sovereign state. I am sure that the future you will design for the school and the Maiotis Center will be a very productive and glorious one, worth of the dreams of the founders and the aspirations of our younger generations. I wish you every success in today's event, and I look forward to being with you soon again. Χρόνια πολλά. Dear
Please express our thanks to the ambassador for very kind words. That was it? The one we have. Okay, thank you. One of the jewels of our school here is the musical education that our students experience. Because of the presence of Father Romanos, a very, very special member of our faculty. In addition to teaching Byzantine music, he is responsible for our choirs and for our musical presentations. Father Romanos, if you would.
βρυσούλες και εσύ σου λιωτοπούλες. Στις στεριάδες ζει το ψάρι, ούταχτος στην αμμουδιά, ούταχτος στην αμμουδιά. Έρχεται για βρυσούλες, τον κύβουν αραχούλες. Έρχεται για βρυσούλες, και εσύ σου λιωτοπούλες. Και οι Έλληνες δεν ζουνε, δίχως την ελευθεριά, δίχως την ελευθεριά. Έρχεται για βρυσούλες, τον κύβουν αραχούλες. Έρχεται για βρυσούλες, και εσύ σου λιωτοπούλες. Έρχεται για βρυσούλες, τον κύβουν αραχούλες. Έρχεται για βρυσούλες, και εσύ σου λιωτοπούλες.
The banking industry's loss when father decided to go into the priesthood was clearly our gain. Dan Nugent is Stockton University's Chief Development Officer and Chief Director of the Stockton University Foundation. He serves as a member of the President's Cabinet and the university's senior leadership team. In his capacity as Stockton's chief fundraiser, Mr. Nugent is responsible for the support of numerous programs and initiatives, including the Panthers Interdisciplinary Center for Hellenic Studies, and works closely with faculty to achieve important projects such as the present exhibit. Dan, welcome. I thank you for your work and your cooperation in helping us achieve this tremendous success. I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future and future projects.
Thank you very much, President Cantonis. Good morning, Your Eminence, Your Grace, honored guests, colleagues, and friends. As President Cantonis said, my name is Dan Nugent. I'm the Executive Director of the Stockton University Foundation, and I am very pleased and proud to join you today to celebrate the opening of this major exhibition commemorating the 200th anniversary of the beginning of the Greek War of Independence. I bring to you greetings and best wishes from the President of Stockton University, Dr. Harvey Kesselman, our Board of Trustees, and the entire Stockton University community. We congratulate all those involved in this project, especially our dear colleague, Dr. Tom Papdimitriou, and Dr. Nicholas Ganson, as well as the students who worked to co-curate this exhibit. Through the Dean and Zoe Pappas Interdisciplinary Center for Hellenic Studies, Stockton University is committed to the disciplines of Greek language and literature, history and culture, classic archaeology, art history, philosophy, politics, anthropology, and Byzantine civilization and religion. We are thrilled to see this exhibit come to fruition, and we are extremely proud and committed to partnering on projects like this one to showcase this important history. As some of you may know, just over a year ago, we welcomed His Eminence to our campus in New Jersey as part of our Konstantelos Memorial Lecture Series. As we listened to his thought-provoking talk on the Orthodox Church in the 21st century, we had no way of knowing of the incredible challenges that we would face in the coming weeks and months. That visit to our campus was the last major event held at Stockton prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have all faced extraordinary difficulties in this past year. Indeed, this has been one of the most challenging years in history for institutions of higher education. But as we gather here today, I find it very fitting that we are together again in your presence for this most important event. So may this momentous occasion be a sign of new beginnings for us all and for our students, and a sign of prosperity and continued partnership for our institutions, and may it last for many years to come. Thank you and congratulations. Thank you very much.
Before I introduce Dr. Tim Petitsis, who is going to lead us through the introduction to the process, the participants, and the material that we're gathered here to celebrate, I want to take this opportunity to introduce the members of the Hellenic College Holy Cross Advisory Committee. Not everyone is present. If you are present, please stand up. I did not have the opportunity to roam the room adequately prior to the commencement of this. So, first, Drake Baracus, as you know, who's the chairman of the committee. His Grace, Bishop Joachim. Pleasure having you as part of our group. Dr. Tim Petitsis, who's our interim dean of the School of the College. Father Athinagoras. There we go. And from the University of Salonicum, Dr. Chrysostomos Stamoulis, who's been a great pleasure for me to get to know over the past year and a half. Dr. Eurydice Georgiadis. Dr. Nicholas Pavalakis. He's not here today, okay. Dr. Kelly Waldechroniou. She couldn't make it either, okay. Dr. Arian Michopoulos, Professor Emeritus. Nick Metropolis, seminarian in his last year, who is also a Director of Institutional Research and Assessment. And then, last but hardly least, Presbytera Chrysula Gugundi, who may possibly be the most organized and energetic organizer of any Greek event that I have ever met in my 73 years. She's absolutely amazing. Presbytera, thank you very, very much. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Tim. Tim was appointed to his position a bit over a year ago as the interim dean of the college. He brought with him his energy and his vision and his height. I have to tell you that at the beginning, when I first arrived and I was really totally unknown in New England, I felt that it was important for me to visit local parishes so that I could say hello and greet local Protestani. And of course, we were wearing masks, and so that was fairly difficult to do for them to recognize me. So I struck upon the strategy of going to church with Tim, because when he walked into the church, he was clearly so tall that he became identified immediately as Tim Petitsis of Hellenic College Holy Cross, so that old guy with him must be me. So Tim, I want to thank you for helping me out. Tim Petitsis, the interim dean of the school of, interim dean of the college. Tim, thank you.
Thank you, George, for that introduction. Your Eminence, Archbishop Opidoforos, Honorable Consul General, Mr. Efthymiou, Mr. Cantonis, Mr. Nugent, Drs. Papadimitriou and Jansen, Ms. Kurkundi, the Reverend Clergy, distinguished guests, and listeners around the world. What a happy occasion it is to be here with all of you, remembering the world-altering, life-saving achievement of Greek independence and the small but significant American role in it. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 2, that great teacher, indeed the very godfather of Orthodox Christianity in Greece, the holy apostle St. Paul, reminds us of the commandment given to the Hebrew people: honor your father and mother. And St. Paul reminds us too that this is the first commandment with a promise, the promise that our days may be long. We are here today in obedience to that divine commandment, to execute our duty to honor our Greek and Orthodox ancestors who risked everything for freedom, for their culture, their dignity, and their faith. We are here today too to obey that divine commandment by remembering and showing off to the entire world our American ancestors who stood alongside the Greeks of that generation, sending money, supplies, the show of the mighty USS Constitution, and above all, men like Samuel Ridley Howe. As the exhibit around you demonstrates, this was a risky commitment for many reasons, and ultimately, American aid to Greece would boomerang back and help to catalyze the anti-slavery fervor that would plunge America itself into its deadliest and most important war, the war to abolish slavery and preserve the Union. Greece and the Hellenic heritage seem to have played some role in the flourishing of most of the civilizations populating today's world, whether directly through founding Western civilization and democracy, or through the decisive Greek influence on Buddhism in the Hellenistic era, or in the case of classical China, through the tribute of 30,000 excellent horses, which Greeks paid when we lost that military clash, which the Chinese annals know as the War of the Heavenly Horses, waged around 100 AD. But if the world has relied on Greece, it's only natural that Greece should have relied upon the world. Philhellenism has been a crucial component of the Greek nation's flourishing and survival. My own dad, although a research chemist and a man of science, is also a native of Agios Petros in Lefkada. My dad cannot say, the words Lord Byron without breaking into tears of gratitude. With this exhibit, we show honor to our fathers and mothers in the Orthodox faith as well. For it is no secret that the Orthodox religion and identity were crucial to the renewal of Hellenism, just as Hellenism had earlier helped ancient Christianity to find its voice, its dogma, and its ascetic mission. Yes, this exhibit then is part of the Hellenic College mission to honor Orthodoxy and Hellenism, to honor our fathers and mothers, to avoid the mass forgetting that is synonymous with dark ages and civilizational decline, and to leverage that holy remembering into the creative renewal of our own lives and our own societies. We remember the past so that we can pay the debts we owe to our ancestors, a debt laid upon us by God, and continue their legacy to generations yet unborn. As I said, this is a day of great happiness, and it has been my special good fortune to serve as the Dean of Hellenic College during the bicentennial of Greek independence, and my still greater fortune to have found in our own Professor Nick Jansen and in Stockton's own Professor Tom Papadimitriou, two talented scholars able to plan, supervise, distill, and design the exhibit which surrounds you. We really just started with an idea. We knew that the bicentennial was coming. We bought the website, GreekBicentennial.org and GreekRevolution.org, and we waited. We waited until the inspiration came from our professors. about precisely what to do. Professor Nick Ganson is the Assistant Professor of History and co-chair of our Literature and History program here at Hellenic. He is also the director of our New York Life Insurance Company Center for the Study of Hellenism and Pontus and Asia Minor. Professor Ganson earned his BA in biology from the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass., an MA with distinction in history here from Boston College, and a PhD in history from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He has received fellowships from the Fulbright Hays Program and the Social Science Research Council. Dr. Ganson's current research interests include the complex interaction of Orthodox Christianity with the modern state and secular society, particularly under Soviet communism. He is also the author of an important book and several articles about famine in the 20th century. And he's become a close friend in my year as interim dean here, and a very capable committee member. Dr. Tom Papadimitriou, also an old friend of mine, is the Constantine and Georgianne Georgiou Endowed Professor of Greek History and the director of the Dean C. and Zoe S. Interdisciplinary Center for Hellenic Studies of Stockton University. Tom is a graduate of Hellenic College and of Holy Cross School of Theology, but he received his PhD from Princeton University's Department of Near Eastern Studies in Ottoman history. He conducts research in the Ottoman archives, the archives of the Ecumenical Patriarchate in Constantinople, and at the Center for Asia Minor Studies in Athens. He focuses on the history of non-Muslims under Ottoman rule. He's fluent in Turkish as well as Greek, and his English is pretty good too. Especially the relations of the Greek Orthodox Church with the Ottoman power in the early Ottoman centuries, which is the subject of his book, Render Unto the Sultan, published by OUP. Dr. Papadimitriou also has won several research awards. We were together when he was a research center fellow at Dunbar Noakes. I was a laborer in the library. I was an employee with all these great scholars like Geraci. You might know from then too. And he serves as the president of the Modern Greek Studies Association. He was recently appointed Archon-elect of the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle. So we're very proud of these two professors for who they are and for what they've done. We're thankful to them, to their contributors and staff, especially the designers of this, the layout of these exhibits, as well as we are thankful to the larger institutions behind them. Mr. Cantonis, Stockton University, the Meliodas Cultural Center. And so without further ado, I would like to turn the floor over to them for their remarks about guiding us into the exhibit. Thank you.
Your Eminence, Archbishop of Theophoros of America, Your Grace, Reverend Fathers, the Honorable Consul General of the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Stratos Septimio, President Cantonis, esteemed members of the Hellenic College and Holy Cross faculty, distinguished guests, beloved students, ladies and gentlemen. On July 10, 1821, here in the United States, the people of Alexandria, Virginia, picked up their daily newspaper and read the news account by George Moore, American consul at Trieste, Austria. George Moore wrote, "We hear that the Greek patriarch and 4 bishops had been hung by order of the government, and that subsequently almost a general massacre of the Greeks had commenced, which was still going forward when this vessel sailed. The English ambassador had several shots fired and only escaped assassination by running. The Greek insurrection in the Morea is going on favorably. A descendant of the old Greek emperors has arrived here from Russia. It is supposed with a view of proceeding to the Morea to join his countrymen in their endeavors to throw off the Turkish yoke." And not just one, but 4 stories on that day in the Gazette and Alexandria Daily Advertiser, the people of Virginia were able to read about the horrific execution of His All Holiness Ecumenical Patriarch Gregory V by hanging, as well as the murder of other bishops. They were informed of the brutal massacre of the Greeks of Constantinople that took place in swift and severe retribution for the insurrection by the Klephts in southern Greece, in the Peloponnesos, as well as in the north, in the Danubian principalities by Alexandros Ypsilantis and his sacred battalion. While the news was not as immediate as today's tweets that appear on our phones from around the world as events happen, literally, the people of the 1820s America were extremely well informed by consistent and detailed news stories from hundreds of daily and weekly newspapers. Americans who read the dramatic news accounts became inspired to get involved to support the Greek cause on this side of the Atlantic, as well as over in Greece. And Americans became deeply involved. The Greek Revolution ignited such passion among Americans that contemporaries called it Greek fire. This is the story that is being told by this exhibition called The Greek Revolution Through American Eyes, that commemorates the 200th anniversary of the start of the Greek War of Independence. The exhibition was created in a wonderful partnership between the Maliotis Cultural Center of Hellenic College Holy Cross and the Dean C. and Zoe S. Pappas Interdisciplinary Center for Hellenic Studies of Stockton University. I'm grateful to my co-director, Dr. Nicholas Ganson, with whom we worked long and hard on this exhibit. I joke that I saw more of him than my wife, on Zoom, of course, but that was plenty. And the curatorial team, I want to acknowledge them. We have students. There were 2 students from Hellenic College and 3 students from Stockton University. I'd also like to thank Dean Timothy Petitsis and Presidera Trisula Kurkudi, who worked tirelessly on preparing today's events and assisting us with the exhibition. I would also like to acknowledge my own dean, Dean Lisa Honecker, and the hard work in supporting us at the Pappas Center. I also wanted to acknowledge our designer, Dion Katinas, who is here with us today, who did all of these wonderful panels, as well as was so easy and wonderful to work with, and thank you for all putting up with us, so I appreciate that. Now I'd like to just offer a short introduction of what we see today. We have 16 scholars who had put together essays for this exhibition. The essays actually will be on the online exhibit that will be opening in May. We focus on preparing the physical exhibition for us today, and that will be opening up in May. But this exhibition positions the Greek Revolution as a global and international event of significance. Looking through a dual lens, it displays to viewers the central Greek revolutionary events and their significance, this strive for human freedom and universal liberty, through the actions of Americans who supported and fought in the war, and it provides insight into the U.S. identity in the first 50 years of the young American Republic's existence. It's at this time that foreign policy was taking shape. It was beginning to recognize also its own problems of social inequities. The exhibit is made of 22 informational panels with images and artifacts of being displayed, and as I mentioned, the supporting website that will also include not only the essays, but primary source documents. This exhibition was actually inspired by the work of the scholar Constantine Hatzidimitriou, who actually published a collection of documents called Founded on Freedom and Virtue, documents illustrating the impact of the United States in the Greek War of Independence. It explores 4 themes. The first is freedom or death, Greece in the age of revolutions. The second theme is Monroe's empathy, rooting for Greek victory, forging a doctrine of non-intervention. The third theme is Greek fever, American Philhellenes and the birth of international humanitarianism. And the fourth is 400 years a slave, Greek unfreedom, and the American abolitionism. So just to give you a brief synopsis of what you'll be seeing, freedom or death, Greece in the age of revolutions, the first theme. Americans of the 1820s understood well that the Greek Revolution took place in an age of revolutions. By the time the Greek Revolution was proclaimed on March 25th, 1821, the world had already experienced more than a dozen independence movements and revolutions. Of course, our own American Revolution, the Battle of Lexington and Concord in 1775, the Declaration of Independence in 1776 in Philadelphia. They knew of the French Revolution in 1789, and then of course the Haitian Revolt that began as a fight for the rights of slaves to be free within independent and free Haiti in 1804. And incidentally, Haiti was the first nation to recognize the Greek state. Between 1808 and 1833, the independent states of Colombia, Paraguay, Venezuela, Mexico, Brazil, Ecuador, and Uruguay were formed by separating from the empires of Spain and Portugal. In 1820, there were also European revolutions in Spain, Italy, and Portugal, and in 1830, there were revolutions in Belgium and the Netherlands. So as you can see, an age of revolution. While the Greek Revolution, however, was a national effort of the Greek people, Americans would have seen it in light of their own revolutionary struggle against tyranny and oppression. Connecting to the revolutionary age, of course, is the famous Jefferson-Corais correspondence, which we feature in our exhibit. Jefferson and Corais shared a deep faith in elective government. They also understood well that a well-governed state required its people to be educated. The second theme, Monroe's empathy, rooting for Greek victory, forging a doctrine of non-intervention. After the Messenian Senate met in Kalamata, actually on March 25th, it proclaimed for liberty at that moment. The Kleptic chieftain, Petrope Mavromikadis, wrote an open letter to Europe and also to America. This letter stated specifically, citizens of the United States, having formed the resolution to live or die for freedom, we are drawn toward you by a just sympathy, since it is in your land that liberty has fixed her abode, and by you that she is prized as our fathers. The letter added, it is for you, citizens of America, to crown this glory in aiding us to purge Greece from the barbarians, who for 400 years have polluted the soil. In this statement, he's essentially saying, Eleftheria y Thanatos. The appeal was forwarded to U.S. Secretary of State John Quincy Adams, and it was considered in the highest offices of the U.S. government. John Quincy Adams opposed intervention, ostensibly because he was uncertain whether Greece would succeed in her bid for independence, and he cautioned President James Monroe not to commit U.S. aid to the cause. On December 2nd, 1823, President Monroe, the fifth president of the United States, issued the famous Monroe Doctrine, and he set forth a policy of non-interference in European affairs. He pledged no aid to the Greek revolutionaries. However, he expressed sympathy for the Greek cause in the document itself, and the conviction that the struggle for independence will be crowned with success. Even after Monroe formally rejected the Greek request for direct intervention, members of the U.S. Congress, such as Daniel Webster from Massachusetts and Henry Clay from Kentucky, made impassioned speeches from the floor of Congress. Unfortunately for the Greek cause, the principles of neutrality, as well as an eye to negotiating commercial treaties with the Ottoman government, this kept the U.S. officially out of the conflict. The American populace, however, rose to the occasion, which is the third theme of the exhibit: Greek fever, American philhellenes, and the birth of international humanitarianism. With the support of figures like Professor Edward Everett, the first endowed professor of Greek at Harvard University, there was a groundswell of support for the Greeks in the general elite society of Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. Everett's love for Greece was infectious, and Greek fever, or Greek fire, was contagious. For a time, Greece was a favorite subject of the American press, which closely covered the course of the war. And as you go through the exhibit, you'll see excerpts from newspapers throughout the exhibit that you can see what they were reading. Private citizens formed Greek relief committees to raise money, to assist with military, but more so humanitarian aid. Everett became well known as a great orator, and the Greek cause being a favorite subject. Other Americans inspired by the Greek cause felt the call to go to Greece in person to take part in the fight for independence. Among the most notable is the Bostonian Samuel Ridley Howe, who graduated from Brown University and then Harvard Medical School in 1824. He enlisted in the Greek cause as a surgeon and was recognized as the Lafayette of the Greek Revolution. Another was Jonathan Miller of Vermont, and the most unlikely was George Jarvis, who actually had never set foot in the United States, having been born to an American merchant in Denmark and raised in Europe. However, his influence in the United States and of America was still heavily felt. Upon his arrival in Greece, George Jarvis connected with the most notable Greek figures of the Revolution. He participated in many important battles, and he recounts these in his journal. He was called by the Greeks Zervas and received the rank of lieutenant general, even commanding troops. With Howe and Miller, the three Americans made a collective decision to shift their efforts away from the battlefront and energize an American relief effort. Up to 1826, the American Greek Relief Committee had worked with the London Greek Relief Committee to send military assistance. The military donations became somewhat problematic. So by 1827, Howe, Miller, and Jarvis had all resigned their posts, taken leave from the Greek military to administer the distribution of food and material from the United States directly to Greece. So you'll see a panel on these starving Greeks. To my left. As David Rosell, one of the contributors, writes in his essay for our exhibit, along with Miller and Howe, rarely have individual people pounded their own swords into plowshares to such great effect. This relief effort that sought to alleviate famine and improve the plight of refugees continued one of the first examples of private or non-state international humanitarianism in the modern era. And as another contributing scholar, Konstantin Hatzidimitrio, reflects, this was perhaps the greatest contribution by the people of the United States to the Greek War of Independence. Other efforts, of course, include Samuel Ridley Howe's establishment of a refugee colony near Corinth he called Washingtonia, which we have a panel for. And contributing scholar Kostis Bourelis states that this Washingtonia colony illustrates the centrality of temporary refugee camps as a permanent feature of the national landscape of Greece for the last 2 centuries. Our final theme, 400 years a slave, Greece unfreedom and American abolitionism. This theme explores the growing sense of national hypocrisy that Americans began to feel as they promoted liberty and freedom of enslaved Greeks, while here at home, they witnessed human beings being bought and sold in America's appalling system of chattel slavery. Now, returning to Petro Bey's letter to the citizens of America, he states in that letter, "Your freedom does not rest on the slavery of other nations. You wish that all men should partake these blessings and enjoy the rights which nature intended for all. It is you who first asserted these rights, and you who have first again recognized them in restoring to the oppressed Africans the character of men." Petro Bey did not intend for his message to be ironic, as he later noted that he commended the U.S. for halting the transatlantic slave trade. But his words were strong enough to pierce the collective conscience of many Americans. For his part, Samuel Ridley Howe's sustained support for the Greek cause dovetailed with his own views on slavery in America. He was convinced by his experience in the Greek Revolution that violent activism would bring about social change. Continuing to support refugees of Washingtonia in the 1840s, he visited Crete in 1866 to support its revolt against the Ottomans. But more interestingly, he was a member of a group called the Secret Six that materially and morally supported the violent uprising of John Brown at Harper's Ferry that marked the start of the American Civil War. His wife, Julia Ward Howe, was also a prominent abolitionist and even penned the lyrics of the Battle Hymn of the Republic. For the Howes, the fight for freedom and liberty for mankind included not only Greece, but the Negro slaves in the United States. One can also thank American women of the 1820s for transforming activism of the Greek cause into activism against slavery. To American women, Greek women were ultimate victims who were subject to Ottoman depravity of the harem and despotism of female slavery. The rhetoric circulating in Greek relief committees, especially among female participants, became an important ingredient not only for women's rights, but for the abolitionist movement. Our final panel that you'll see is called The Greek Slave. The Greek slave was sculpted by Hiram Powers in 1844 and depicted a nude young Greek woman being sold in a Turkish slave market. It was meant to be inspired by Turkish atrocities imposed upon the Greeks. As Maureen Santelli, the author of the newly released book, Greek Fire, by Cornell University Press, wrote in her essay for our exhibit, the statue itself embodied the vision of the ideal chaste female, modest, demure, and in need of protection. Yet the hypocrisy of the statue in 1844 became clear to abolitionists. And Powers was ridiculed by such satirical illustrations as in the magazine Punch in 1851, depicting a black chattel female slave in America standing in place of the Greek girl. In the process, however, Powers' own views evolved. When sculpting about the Greek cause, he had created what he called ornamental chains. But later, as his views transformed, he created a later version of the statue, of which a 19-inch replica was found in the home of the famous abolitionist Frederick Douglass. On this statue, he sculpted slave manacles like those used on the slaves in the United States as a direct critique of American slavery. I've arrived at the end of our brief preview of the themes of the exhibit, the Greek Revolution through American eyes. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address you all. It's been my great honor and pleasure to be able to work on this exhibit and also to address you. And I hope what I presented piqued your interest in what you'll be reading and seeing throughout the panels. And it begins with the first two themes on the far side of the room, and then the second two themes on this side. Now I'd like to call on my colleague, Dr. Nicholas Ganson, who will give you a bit of a survey of the process of putting this together. So thank you for your attention.
Your Eminence, Your Grace, Honorable Consul General, President Cantonis, Reverend Fathers, esteemed colleagues, and guests. I'd like to devote a few minutes, the few minutes that I have, to speak to process, as Tom said, but also a little bit about the purpose of the exhibition. So purpose, a little bit about the purpose, and then the process by which the exhibition was produced, as well as to thank those who participated in the process. So first, purpose. The primary purpose, as we all know, is to celebrate the 200th anniversary of a monumental event. One that's monumental not only for Greeks, but really citizens, global citizens. This war, the Greek War of Independence, was a monumental event in modern history, modern global history. If it's not clear now, maybe to some, it will be by the time that you've completed your tour of the exhibition and looked closely at the panels, particularly as you look at the first set of panels on the Age of Revolutions. Second purpose is to learn and to afford an opportunity to learn. While we certainly sought to engage the audience by presenting a compelling narrative or a compelling set of narratives, as historians we were also indoctrinated with the need to strive for historical truth. And historical truth entails embracing complexity. For that reason, if you take the time to read all the texts, including even the captions, don't skip the captions, you will find many layers of detail therein. Lots of food for thought, lots of details that provide texture, nuance to the events in question. Reading directly from the curatorial statement, which can be found on the introductory panel, quote, in March 1821, after roughly 400 years of Ottoman Turkish rule, the Greek people rose up against their oppressors with the cry of liberty. The Americans, who had launched their own struggle for freedom a mere 45 years earlier, also against those they deemed tyrants, had succeeded not only in achieving independence, but also by 1821, a sort of splendid isolation from European affairs. Constrained by its foreign policy of non-intervention in Europe, the United States appeared to stand idly by during the struggle. The Greek Revolution succeeded in 1829 with direct assistance from Britain, Russia, and France, but not the United States. Hidden from view has been the reality that many Americans felt a burning desire to support the Greek patriots in their quest for freedom and worked actively to help them accomplish their goal. This exhibition presents the oft-overlooked, intriguing, and dramatic story of American support in sundry forms of the Greek Revolution of 1821 to 1829, end quote. In this way, the exhibit also helps shed light on the largely overlooked American role in the Greek struggle. So I think it also makes a contribution to the historiography in that way. And it's important not only for attendees of the exhibit, but also for historians, because departing a little bit from the script, from my text, is that if you open a global history textbook, a Western civilization textbook, generally you're only going to find a handful of paragraphs at most devoted to the Greek Revolution. So I think for us, as a community, as a college, there's a lot of opportunity, there's a lot of space to build on that and to tell more of that story, to really look closely at what happened, to look at all of the sacrifice, not only the military leaders, but the common people and what they lived through during those years. So in a sense, it's the purpose is to learn, to afford an opportunity to learn, and perhaps, and hopefully also encourage further exploration of the Greek Revolution. The third purpose, history always invites us to reflect, and indeed, celebrations and holidays provide us with an opportunity to reflect. Each of us will probably take away something different from the exhibition. We all have our unique perspectives. But it is my earnest wish and conviction that we will all take away something of value. When I first began to delve more deeply into the history of the Greek War of Independence 4 years ago, when then Dean of Hellenic College, Dimitrios Katos, asked me to give a talk on Greek Independence Day, it was the example of Hieromartyr Grigorios V, Gregory V, the ecumenical patriarch, that captivated my attention, and prompted me to reflect. A man who, trapped in an impossible situation in human terms, found God's safe harbor through martyrdom. There are abundant examples here worthy of emulation, examples of courage and sacrifice. Now a few words about the process. Dr. Tim Batitsas, who was very gracious in providing an introduction for us, stood at the origins of this project. And it is he who assigned me to my role, so I'm very grateful to him for having the honor of participating in the organization of this exhibit. Being paired up with Tom was a blessing. And despite all the hard work that we did, in a sense the process was easy, owing to Tom's commitment to the project and his collaborative and thoughtful approach to the task at hand. After the initial meetings, we developed multiple teams that made major contributions to the project. A team of scholars worked independently to produce essays, many of which provided the foundation for the panel content you will see in the exhibition. The list of scholars is long and is provided on the introductory panel, so I won't read all the names, but I encourage you to look closely at the list of contributing scholars. But a big thank you to all the scholars who participated, near and far, for generously sharing their time and expertise. I would like to personally thank my colleague here at HCHC, Dr. Matadova, both for her scholarly contribution and her enthusiasm and support from day one. A curatorial team that committed to weekly meetings and worked first to gain a firm grasp of the history of the Greek Revolution, second, to analyze primary sources, largely from the volume that Tom just mentioned, founded on freedom and virtue, and to identify themes therein. This would help lend coherence to the story of American involvement in the Greek struggle. Third, to locate images that would help tell the story, and you'll find a lot of those images that are curatorial assistants located on the panels. And finally, to participate in the drafting of the panels. Each of the 4 curatorial assistants who met with us regularly, 2 Hellenic College students, Christopher Russell and Nicholas Dafoulis, and 2 Stockton University students, Sophia Lopresti and Olivia Harris, played a lead role in the creation of a panel. Each of them provided most of the content for one of these panels. Shortly, you'll be hearing both from Chris and Sophia. So one student from, one of the curatorial assistants from Hellenic College will speak briefly, and one curatorial assistant from Stockton University. A design team, the centerpiece of which was Dion Katinas. If we liken the process to driving, there were many detours, 3-point turns, U-turns, an occasional roadblock, and Dion navigated all of these with patience, grace, and determination. So I echo what Tom said, so thank you very much. A big thank you to Presbytera Fisula and the Maliotis Center for hosting this event, to the HCHC grounds crew for hanging the banners, which I certainly couldn't have done. And then, last but not least, there was firm support throughout by President Cantonis and the administration, with periodic but pivotal interventions by Deacon Gary Alexander and our friends in the finance office, Kyle Gilbert and Bernadette DeGregoris. So, as I turn things over to Chris and then to Sophia to speak on behalf of our team of curatorial assistants, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who made this exhibition possible, and all those in attendance today, both in person and via live stream. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you everyone for allowing me to be here. And thank you to Dr. Jansen for allowing me to be on this project. When it was initially pitched to me, it seemed really interesting, but it's specifically that focus of this project, and specifically as through the American eyes, that really got me interested. For me, the real utility of this exhibit, as well as the insight that it provides, comes by that subline. With this lens, new names, new perspectives, and new experiences come forward in an interesting and unique way, even with a story as classic as the Revolution itself. Names like Sam Ogerly Howe, George Jarvis, and Jonathan Miller were unknown to me before working on this project. And now, with the research we have collected, I'm familiar with the side of the Revolution that I never appreciated before. A wealth of personality, drama, and heroism unfolds as the methods we have adopted in constructing the exhibit today. And I hope that that drama will be apparent to you as you tour it. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Sophia Lofesti. I recently graduated from Stockton University with my bachelor's in history, and I'm currently a graduate student at Stockton obtaining my master's in American Studies. Stockton holds such a special place in my heart, and through my education there, I have developed a deep passion for history and research. Dr. Papadimitriou has not only been an outstanding professor in guiding me along my thesis and undergraduate career, but has now been an incredible mentor after graduation, and I will not be able to thank him enough for this extraordinary opportunity as a curatorial assistant and learning under his and Professor Ganson's exceptional guidance. Beginning in November of 2020, the directors and the curatorial team would meet once a week to discuss responsibilities, the exhibit timeline, and of course our excitement for the project. Olivia, Nick, Chris, and I examined and read countless primary source documents, performed pages of image research, wrote, revised, and edited excerpts that you might see today, and learned all that we possibly could about the Greek Revolution. Through this experience, I have become more confident as an editor and archival researcher, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity. The curatorial team and I are so excited to see our work finally come to life, both here today at Stockton and in our incredible online format. To be able to create new scholarship and be a part of this project during this very tumultuous time has been definitely one of my greatest achievements. Thank you.
We should have a video showing up very shortly. That is a couple-minute video coming from the organization in Greece for the 200th anniversary.
Yeah.
closing, I'd like to make a couple observations. First of all, I want to thank you all for coming, for helping us initiate the opening of this magnificent exhibition. I want to thank all who participated in the development of the exhibition itself, for their time, their commitment, and their focus, for the incredible amount of academic work and design work that went into the presentation. Your Eminence, I want to thank you again for joining us. And I just want to make one other observation, and that is that it's truly an honor for this institution to be able to help celebrate this spectacular 200th anniversary. It's our honor to be able to do that. Thank you all for coming.
Yes. Yeah, I think we have that.